Right, knight versus rook's pawn, which is endings 12 and 13, I think, in the Book of Jesus. Jesus de la Villa covers the knight versus central pawns and knight versus a knight's pawn very well. I recommend that book. Again, I've recommended that book several times, but I'm not going to cover those. I'm just going to get straight onto knight versus rook's pawn, which is something Dvoretsky talks about as well. And kicking off with this position, it's white to move. Pause the video and decide what you'll do. Although, unless you've got what I would call some pretty important knowledge of how you deal with a 6th rank rook's pawn using just a knight, because our king is clearly out of the game. We've got to just try and sort this out just with the knight. Unless you've got the knowledge of how you do that, it's going to be extremely hard to work out. To work out where you want that knight next, basically. The way knights move around as well, they're so slippery. The way knights move around, they're actually kind of visually quite hard to track, and seeing all their moves by brute force it's actually quite hard. You can follow pawns, like, oh, he plays e5 and I play c4, and you can sort of follow them, and there's a visual. But when you're trying to follow knights, it's almost like you watch the knight go there and it's, well, the knight's gone there, and it's actually extremely hard to calculate with knights, I think, in that brute force way. You end up doing it, I think, almost the other way around. You think about where you want your knight and then look for the path that gets you there. Or you look at squares where your opposition, you think my opposition wants a knight there. Uh-oh, how are they going to get a knight there? And you see that path, and that's how I personally think about knights more than the other pieces. If my opponent wants their bishop on b6, it's not difficult to see how they get to b6. I mean, they go via g1 or whatever. We know how pieces, bishops, they're sort of easy to see how they move around the board, but knights are hard. So you sort of, if you were having a go at this as white, which you might have done if you paused the video, it's going to be extremely difficult to see how you stop that rook's pawn unless you had some knowledge. And that knowledge is this circuit. Okay, that's how a knight stops a 6th rank rook's pawn. Once your white knight is on that circuit in a particular way, it's a draw. All the black king can do is chase you around that circuit, but they can't get you. They can't make any progress, basically. And they can chase you around, but you just keep moving to a different place on the circuit. And I'll show you how that plays out in a sec. But first of all, how do we get onto that circuit? If we just trust for now, we need to get onto that circuit. Well, that gets you onto the circuit, knight f1. The problem here is that you have to play your knight to f1 when the black king is on g3 or f3 or something. You can't do it when the black king's on h2, because the black king will come in here. You can't go to h2 because the black king just takes you. And if you go to e3, which is the next place on the circuit, h2, you're not stopping the pawn. Okay, so if you see, let me see that play out. Knight f1, king g1. King g2 would have been alright. Then we go knight e3 check. But king g1, you've had it. That's the next place on the circuit. You're not stopping the h-pawn. If you didn't know about the circuit, of course, you'd just play knight g3. But black still just pushes the h-pawn, and they're just going to kick your knight away next go. You cannot do anything about that. Okay, so knight f1 is not a good move. It's no good, basically. So how are you going to get on that circuit? You have to get on that circuit. Black's about to move their king and play h2. Just having that knowledge would have been good. How do you get on that circuit? Well, you can join it at f1, but we've decided that's a load of rubbish. And the only other place to join it, if it's 2 moves, you can't go anywhere else in 1 move, so it has to be 2 moves, is to join it at e3. So it must be knight c4. So knight c4, and I mean, you'll see these positions in a minute, but now, for example, if black plays king g2, you're on the circuit with check, and I'll show you in a minute how that's how the circuit works. King g3, you play knight e3, and you're on the circuit. I mean, straight away as an example of how it works is that if black pushes the h-pawn, knight f1 check picks it up. Okay. But unfortunately, although you're ready to go to e3 and black can't stop you coming to e3, again, king g1 sneakily means that they don't care if you go to e3. I mean, if you think back to this, knight f1, knight e3, they just didn't care, they just pushed the h-pawn. So it's going to be the same in this position. Not this position. King g1. And you still can't join the circuit at e3, they'll just push the h-pawn. So remember, this is the circuit. We can't join it at e3. I think, well, where the hell else do we join this circuit? Particularly as black's about to push the h-pawn. You know, when black pushes that h-pawn, what are we going to do? The only thing I can see to do is play knight f3 check. That would work, wouldn't it? If we're on e5, we can play knight f3 check. So we go to e5. If black pushes the h-pawn, knight f3 check. If black doesn't push the h-pawn, we're on the circuit. And this time the black king's miles away from g4, so we have joined the circuit correctly. And now let's just see how that circuit works, including some of those positions that I said were just drawn a minute ago. So knight there, black can't push the h-pawn, so I don't know, king g2, knight g4. Let's chase that knight away, king g3, knight e3. This is one of the positions I said was okay. When our knight was on c4, if black had played king g3, we could have gone knight e3. And what does black do? They can't push the h-pawn because knight f1 picks it up. So they've got to move their king. They might as well come and hassle your knight. If they hassle your knight here, you check them back on g4. If they hassle your knight here, you come to f1. Depending on where they hassle your knight, you just go to the other square, basically. Because they're guarding e3 there, so you go to h2. Again. Hassle that way. That one, you hassle that way. And, yeah, I mean, that's it, really. King g3, knight f1. Let's show you one of the positions that I said was okay. If they played king g2 at the start, I said that's the circuit. So here we are, that's fine. Black just can't do anything. Your next move is either knight g4 or knight f1, depending on where they move their king. And yeah, I mean, there's just nothing they can do. You're always threatening some sort of check. Let's say they go, I'm just trying to think where else they could go. King g1, you go back here, here. Well, here you're actually on the circuit, you can just ignore them and play king b7. There, that's an important one. Knight e3, they can't push the h-pawn, they can't hassle your knight, they still can't push the h-pawn. They can just never do anything. This is just a draw. So really worth knowing that circuit. Once you know it, you're in a position to work out how you got onto it from this more difficult starting position. But yeah, knight c4 is the drawing move. So with your knowledge of that circuit, try this one. Pause the video and this one's very, very hard. This is a Grigoriev study from 1932, and it's pretty mental, if you ask me. Here's the circuit. We're not going to stop the black pawn getting to h3, but we can somehow get on that circuit. Let's see how. So you play knight b4. Black just pushes the h-pawn because you're still nowhere near that circuit at the moment. Then you play knight c6. Like, wow, how would you have thought about that? What you're trying to do is get to e5. Or maybe d4 as well, if black rushes over too early. In fact, just out of interest, is king d, is knight d, yeah, knight d4 is okay there, for example. So your knight b4, push the h-pawn, knight c6. Now, if black pushes the h-pawn again, that's not a very clever idea, because then we go knight e5. We know that g4 is on the circuit. The only move that black could do to stop you getting to g4 is king f4, but then we fork the king and the pawn. Okay, so back in this position, black shouldn't push the pawn. Black has to stop you getting to e5. And they may as well stop you getting to d4 as well. So they might as well come in and cover these two squares, which is what they do, king e4. And now your knight's sort of not really getting anywhere, so it needs to sort of find another way in. And just like before the c4 square, we're in that first position, that knight c4 was a great first move. It was a great jumping spot to get in to the circuit. It's the same here. So the only drawing move is knight a5. You're like, wow. Just incredible, isn't it? Let's say black pushes the h-pawn, then we come into c4. If black pushes the h-pawn again, we're on the circuit. Remember that f1 is part of the circuit. There's the circuit. So black can't push the h-pawn. They can't go to e5 or e3. They could go to d3, I suppose. But the most challenging move is knight f3, I think. Just trying to think of some of the most challenging. Yeah, that's the most challenging move, knight f3. Because now it's like, well, how are you going to get the knight over? If you play knight d2, I think that's a mistake. I think black plays king e2. It is. That's black's won that now. What you do is you play knight e5 check. Reasonably similar to what we saw before, actually. If black plays king f4, that picks up the pawn. If black plays king anywhere, really, other than guarding the g4 square, you play knight g4. So black would guard the g4 square with king g3. And now, this is just incredible, the only drawing move is knight back to c4. What? You know, how come you were in this position? Why did you go to e5? And once the king goes there, he goes back to c4. If your knight was any good on c4, why didn't you just keep it on c4 and bring your king over? Just like, well, the black king was guarding the e3 square. So if the black king comes back, we repeat. If the black plays h3, we're on the circuit, as seen already. So we're now on the circuit, and all the black king can do is chase our knight around. What else could they do? They could try king f4. That sort of stops your knight coming in. But then you're going to come in this way and get on the circuit. I think I've already covered that one, actually. King f2, we could still go knight e5, and we're ready to come to g4 again with check. They can't stop it with king f3. That's probably threefold repetition by now. Knight c4. So I think the study ended with, what was it, h3, knight e3, sorry. What was I going to c2? Yeah, so knight e3, and we're on the circuit, which I'm changing the colour of. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, who finds that move? Knight b4, then knight c6, then knight a5. You come into c4. When the black king goes towards the pawn, you check on e5. And when black covers the g4 square, having relinquished control of e3, you go back to c4. So I will get on this circuit. And there you are, on the circuit. Well done, Grigoriev, 1932. Another mental study from him. Right, next one. White to play. Pause the video and see if you can get on the circuit, I suppose. That'd be the thing you're trying to do, isn't it? Get on the circuit. Giving you long enough to pause the video now. I'm really sorry, but it was a mean trick pause the video moment, because you soon realise, here's your circuit. You can't get on it in this one. So what you're going to do is a different drawing idea. So if the king's out of commission and the black pawn's on h3 and we're on the circuit, the knight stops the pawn by itself. We've just seen that. If the king's out of commission and the black rook's pawn's on the 7th rank, so h2 for us, we've had it. Okay. However, there's something else you need to know about, like an L shape. Basically, there's an L shape that the knight can use to keep the black king at bay, to give the white king just enough time to get over. And there's two different L shapes that you need to be aware of. Let's see them through this brilliant study, also Grigoriev, 1932. So knight f7 is the first move. And if black doesn't push the h-pawn, you can see knight g5 is going to be an easy draw. So we see h3. Knight g5 attacks the h-pawn. Black's moves are pretty much forced. And now we've got to guard h1. And the only way we can do that is to go via this check on e4. Now at first sight, black's got two sensible moves here, which is either king d3 or king d4. Okay, whichever one they choose, I'm going to put my knight on a square that does a particular L shape, and I'm just going to explain what that is. So let's say they play king d4. The L shape I want to create, if possible, is that one. That's the L shape. I basically want, after my next move, I'm going to cover the h1 square of my knight. It's either coming here or here, obviously, but I'm going to put it on the square that means they can't go, black can't put their king on e3 or e5. Or d3 or e4, sorry. I've already seen which square I'm going to, and yeah, they're not going to be able to put their king on d3 or e4 for sure, but they're also not going to be able to put it on e3 or e5. So the square I need to go to is f2. And that's created this L shape. d3 and e4 are covered directly. e3 and e5 are covered via this check, picking up the pawn. The black king cannot step on that L. So when king d4 was played first of all, I chose my knight move to make that L shape. You can't stop the king getting there eventually, but you can hold it up. You've created like an L barrier, and the black king has to come round and get you this way. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3. And by that stage, we've got 1, 2, 3. We're not going to play that third move. We're going to play knight into the corner. Okay, so that was our third move. Black's going to chase us in. Stalemate. With just enough time. Pretty sure if this position was set up again with the white king on b7, you've had it. You can create the L shape, sure, but it's just not going to be good enough, basically. So that was king d4. Let's just see it play out. So king d4, knight f2. There's your L shape. The black king can't step on any of those squares. It can't come around this way because you would just stop it immediately. King d5, play king d7, and it's even further away. So the black king has to come around the L this way. We'll bring the white king closer. There. Knight into the corner. Let's try and shoulder you away, actually. I didn't think about shouldering. Draw. Just. So knight f7, h3, knight g5, h2, knight e4 check, king d4, we play knight f2. What if they played king d3? Okay. Now if we play knight f2, they've got king e2, which wasn't part of this L. But this time we're going to make a different L. We're going to make this L. Oh, not that L. We'll make this L. And we can do that with knight g3. e2 and e4 are directly covered. d2 and e3 are indirectly covered through that check, picking up the h2 pawn. So this time the black king has to step round that L. Again, king d4 trying to come around this way is a waste of time because we play king d6 straight away. So they'd have to come round this way. One. Ooh. Having trouble with the colours. Oh my god. 1, 2, 3, 4 to attack the knight. We can shove it in the corner again, but we've also got 1, 2, 3. Oh, and it's defended, so that's even easier. So we've got those L shapes, and that's why in the original position I said that we'd probably want to investigate as well, or I was thinking it if I didn't say it. Here, black's two most sensible moves are to come and attack the knight. But if they sort of know what you're about to do, they might realise that you're either going to go to f2, which sets up this L shape, or you're going to go to g3, which sets up this L shape. And they don't want to be part of either of those two L's. So they could go to c2. Because if they come around this way to attack your knight that's got to now appear on f2 or g3, yeah, I mean, they're not going to step on either of those two L's. Now, knight f2 doesn't look good here because, I mean, you're almost forgetting about the L's, to be honest, if they play king c2, because neither of them are. Yeah, I mean, black can always just come round wherever the L is. So the L's kind of a bit irrelevant now, and you just want to put your knight somewhere where it's not going to get attacked for ages. I'm just trying to think, if we played it to g3, we've got 1, 2, 3 moves to attack it, and 1, 2, 3 moves to defend it. I think knight g3 is just a draw. Knight f2 might be a loss. Looks a bit dodgy. I'm going to cheat now. It is a loss. Yeah, knight g3 is the right answer. So knight g3, king d1, and we just come in and defend. Just out of interest here, again, I haven't looked yet, I'm wondering whether knight h1 also draws. Knight h1, king g2, king e4. No, it doesn't, it loses. So the only drawing move here is to defend the knight. So that was probably black's best try. Here, black's best winning try is king c2. Maybe. I don't know. Someone who doesn't know anything about those L's is going to play knight g3 there, aren't they? It's the obvious move. Yeah, maybe black's best winning try is just play one of those two and hope they pick the wrong L. I mean, they're blatantly going to play knight f2 or h or g3. You just got to work out which one they're maybe more likely to play. But if they know what they're doing, then yeah, that's a draw, I'm afraid. If the white king's on b7, the limited hangout that your knight was being isn't is too limited, basically. Needs a little bit more hanging out, basically. And finally, this is white to play. This is from a 1977 game. This is a bit sort of can the knight get on the circuit, and a bit involving the knight's dumb square, which I covered in the last night and knight versus pawn video. So yeah, pause the video. What would you do? White to play. Very well done if you found d6. Obviously knight takes d6, be a pretty good idea. Bishop to d5. And yeah, I mean, what does black even do here? You're threatening to take on b7 and then play, just push the a pawn. I mean, if black just brings their king over, for example, we'll take on b7, knight takes, the knight's on its dumb square. Black's best try is maybe just to cover the a7 square with knight b5. So bishop takes b7. I mean, it's still only +3, so it's clearly winning for white. But you've got bishop versus knight, and you've stretched the knight over both sides of the board. But yeah, that's you've won the b7 pawn basically now, haven't you? And this knight's tied to guarding a7. So yeah, that was it. d6. I kind of saw all of that and then thought that we were looking for something a bit more clinical, where, because that final position there was just, not that position, but the other one, it's, +3 according to the engine. So you're winning, but it's not completely over. You probably wouldn't resign just yet. I thought I'd found something really clever. So I'll just show you quickly how I completely blundered this study away. And you've just got to be so careful when you do piece sacrifices. So bishop b5 is what I tried. And then I was looking at things like knight d6. And then bishop to c6. Because I wanted to stop the... I've just realised as well it doesn't actually even work. It doesn't stop the black knight getting to a7 anyway with the same defence. But this blunders to takes. And what did I find here? I found knight c8. There's loads of different ways for I don't even know why I'm showing this actually, because there's just loads of different ways for black to win this. But I found knight c8, and then my plan was to, it was just nonsense basically. I thought I was being clever, but I wasn't. It was just d6, and that's a win. So all black can do really is let you have the b7 pawn and stop your pawn at least getting to a7. Anyway, that's knight versus rook's pawn. Most important bits are the L shapes and the circuit. Okay, we get on the circuit to stop the rook's pawn on the 6th rank. We can do the L shapes to give ourselves a little bit more time for the king to get over if the pawn's on the 7th rank. That's knight versus rook's pawn.